The young and the restless spoilers in the cold, pre-dawn darkness. Sharon woke with a jolt, her heart pounding in her chest as the shrill, horrifying sound of an alarm shattered the silence. It was not a gentle awakening. The sound was grating and persistent, echoing off the peeling walls of what appeared to be an abandoned asylum. As her eyes fluttered open, still heavy with the remnants of sleep, she heard a deep, distorted male voice booming through the room. The voice, laden with malice and authority, cut through the haze of confusion like a knife. "Why is it like this?" Sharon thought frantically. "Who is that? Why did he kidnap me?" The questions raced through her mind as she tried to piece together the fragments of her memory. Her pulse raced in time with the unrelenting alarm, each beat a reminder that every second counted. With trembling hands, she reached for the thin, stained blanket that covered her and slowly rose to her feet. The room she occupied was dimly lit by the pale glow of emergency lights, their weak illumination barely revealing the decrepit state of the room. The walls were lined with outdated, rusted medical equipment, and the floor was littered with debris that testified to years of neglect. Following the eerie instructions given by the voice, Sharon moved cautiously down a narrow corridor. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the vast emptiness of the building, mingling with the persistent alarm. It was then, around a corner shrouded in shadow, that she encountered another figure. Standing under the flickering light was Phyllis, a woman whose very presence radiated both defiance and despair. Phyllis's eyes were wide with shock, her face pale as she took in the surreal situation. "Why are we both victims?" Sharon exclaimed in a quivering voice, her mind reeling at the realization that this was no ordinary abduction. The atmosphere was thick with danger, and the grim truth began to dawn on them. They were ensnared in a trap orchestrated by someone with a deeply twisted sense of control. The man's voice had been clear in his message: there was a price, and the cost of their freedom was yet to be determined. "Give me your price," Sharon pleaded desperately, her voice echoing in the empty corridor. "I'll pay any amount you want. Please, let me go, I don't want to be here for another second." But her desperate appeal was met not with compassion, but with cold, calculated cruelty. The disembodied voice responded with chilling finality. They were to play a game, a perilous contest that demanded their cooperation. "Unite to escape," the voice commanded, its tone leaving no room for negotiation. The message was clear: despite any animosity or hatred that might exist between them, survival hinged on their ability to work together. As Sharon and Phyllis stood in the cold, abandoned hallway, the weight of their predicament began to sink in. They were trapped in an old, dilapidated psychiatric hospital, a place where the remnants of forgotten horrors still lingered in every creaking door and shadowed corner. The building was far more than a mere setting, it was a character in its own right, its decaying corridors lined with an array of surveillance cameras that glinted ominously under the sparse lighting. It was as though every move they made was being watched by unseen eyes, amplifying their vulnerability. Phyllis, who had harbored a long-standing animosity towards Sharon due to past betrayals and unresolved conflicts, felt a surge of conflicting emotions. In the midst of fear and panic, the bitterness of old wounds bubbled to the surface. Yet, faced with the prospect of a merciless captor and an unknown enemy, she realized that personal grievances had to be set aside. Survival demanded unity, even if it meant swallowing years of resentment. With a deep, steadying breath, Phyllis nodded at Sharon, a silent agreement passing between them. The game, as outlined by the sinister instructions echoing through the corridors, was simple in its concept yet brutal in its execution. Navigate through the labyrinthine corridors of the asylum, overcome a series of challenges, and eventually unlock the secrets that held the key to their escape. Each door they encountered was a potential trap, and every hallway might lead them closer to freedom, or deeper into the clutches of their captor. The building itself was a maze, a puzzle designed to disorient and terrify. Its walls, marked by the scars of its troubled past, seemed to whisper secrets of former patients and long-forgotten experiments. Their journey began with cautious exploration. Sharon and Phyllis moved as a unit, each step taken with deliberate care. The corridors were long and winding, the silence broken only by the intermittent hum of malfunctioning electrical fixtures and the ever-present alarm that never ceased its relentless shriek. Along the way, they discovered unsettling remnants of the hospital's dark history, abandoned patient records, rusted restraints, and faded photographs of individuals whose eyes seemed to follow them in the gloom. At one point, they entered a room that appeared to have once served as an operating theater. The air was thick with the metallic scent of old blood, and the remnants of surgical tools lay scattered on a grimy tray. It was a macabre reminder of the suffering that had occurred in this place, and both women felt a shiver run down their spines. In that moment, the gravity of their situation became all the more real. They were not just battling an unknown captor, they were confronting the haunted legacy of a place that had once been a site of unspeakable torment. As they pressed on, Sharon's mind raced with questions about their abductor. Who was the man with the authoritative voice? What twisted purpose did he have in orchestrating this elaborate game? And perhaps most chilling of all, how did he have access to the entire building, with cameras installed in every room and hallway? The omnipresence of these surveillance devices suggested that he was not only monitoring their every move but was also deriving some perverse satisfaction from their fear. It was as if the building itself was a stage, and they were unwilling performers in a macabre theater of cruelty. Despite the terror that gnawed at their nerves, Sharon and Phyllis began to notice subtle clues hidden within the building. Cryptic messages scrawled on walls, faint symbols etched into the floors, and even the layout of the corridors hinted at a pattern, a puzzle left behind by the captor. Piece by piece, they started to form a strategy. Their combined intellect and resourcefulness became their only hope against the overwhelming odds. Hours turned into an indeterminate stretch of time as they navigated through a series of locked doors, each requiring them to solve a riddle or overcome a physical obstacle. Their progress was punctuated by moments of intense fear, punctuated by brief, anxious exchanges as they communicated in hushed whispers. At one point, while hiding in a storage closet filled with old hospital supplies, Phyllis confided in Sharon about her past grievances and the events that had driven a deep wedge between them. The conversation was raw and emotional, revealing layers of pain that had festered over the years. Yet, in that dire moment, it was their shared humanity and the desperate need to survive that bridged the gap between them. "I never thought we'd end up here," Phyllis murmured, her voice trembling with both fear and a reluctant sense of camaraderie. "I always believed our differences were insurmountable, but now, all that matters is getting out of here alive." Sharon nodded, her eyes reflecting both determination and vulnerability. "We have to trust each other, Phyllis. No matter what happened between us, this man has no right to use our past against us. We must be smart, work together, and find a way out." Their resolve was tested further when they reached a massive door reinforced with heavy metal and secured by a digital lock, a final barrier before what appeared to be the exit. The door was covered in symbols that matched the cryptic clues they had encountered throughout the hospital. Realizing that deciphering the code would be the key to unlocking their freedom, the two women pooled their fragmented memories, combining them with the observations they had made along the way. Every detail mattered, and every overlooked symbol could have been the missing piece of the puzzle. As they worked in unison, their earlier conflicts melted away, replaced by a burgeoning mutual respect. The tension of the moment gave way to a focused determination. Slowly, after what felt like an eternity of trial and error, the code began to reveal itself. The door creaked open with a groan of protest, revealing a dimly lit passageway that promised escape, or perhaps further challenges. Just as hope began to take root, the menacing voice boomed once more over the hospital's intercom system. "Congratulations on making it this far," it sneered. "But your game is not yet over. The final trial awaits, and only by facing your deepest fears can you claim your freedom." The words sent a shiver down their spines, and for a brief moment, doubt crept into their hearts. What final terror could their captor have prepared? What secrets did this forsaken asylum still hold? In that chilling moment, Sharon and Phyllis exchanged a look that spoke volumes, a silent promise to face whatever lay ahead together, regardless of the personal history that had once set them at odds. Their only choice was to confront the dark unknown as allies, united by a common goal: survival. Every step forward was a battle against despair, every door opened to victory over the oppressive weight of their surroundings. The abandoned mental hospital, with its myriad corridors and hidden chambers, was not just a physical prison but a psychological one as well. It forced them to confront not only the literal obstacles in their path but also the inner demons that had long haunted them. As they advanced deeper into the maze-like structure, the lines between past and present blurred. Memories of their previous lives, filled with pain, betrayal, and regret, merged with the stark reality of their current plight. In the dim corridor ahead, illuminated by a single, swinging fluorescent light, Sharon paused to take a deep breath. "We've come this far," she whispered, her voice steadier now, "and we won't let this man, or this place, break us." Phyllis squeezed her hand in silent agreement, their shared resolve forging a bond stronger than any old grudge. With renewed determination, they stepped forward into the uncertain future, ready to confront the final trial that awaited them. The game was far from over, and as the shadows closed in around them, the only certainty was that their survival depended on their unyielding unity in the face of unspeakable terror. Thus, the stage was set for a climactic confrontation, a battle not only against a sadistic mastermind but against the lingering scars of their past. In the heart of an abandoned asylum, where every creak of the floor and every flash of a camera lens testified to the horrors within, Sharon and Phyllis began their desperate bid for freedom. And as they moved forward into the darkness, one thing was clear: in order to escape, they would need to embrace both the light of hope and the strength found in unity, even if it meant confronting the very shadows of their own souls. In the dim corridors of the abandoned asylum, the chilling realization settled in. No matter how carefully Phyllis and Sharon planned their escape, every whispered strategy, every secret hope they shared, was being silently recorded. The mysterious kidnapper, whose identity remained shrouded in darkness and whose motives were as unfathomable as the labyrinthine passages of the forsaken hospital, listened to their every word. His unseen presence loomed over them, a silent puppeteer pulling strings from the shadows. Phyllis's voice trembled as she confided, "We must be cautious. Every step we take, every plan we form, could be used against us." Sharon, determined yet equally fearful, responded, "I know, but what other choice do we have? We have to trust our instincts, even if it feels like we're just dancing on the edge of a knife." Unbeknownst to them, the kidnapper's lips curled into a sinister smile of satisfaction. His twisted pleasure was derived not only from their vulnerability but also from the delicious irony that their every attempt at outwitting him only played further into his masterful game. For him, the thrill lay in his absolute control. Even as the duo painstakingly pieced together clues to escape, he was always one step ahead, intercepting their plans with eerie precision. Every conversation they had, no matter how hushed or desperate, was infiltrated by his sophisticated surveillance system. Cameras embedded in the walls and corridors, concealed microphones behind broken fixtures, and advanced tracking devices ensured that nothing remained hidden. His intelligence was both a curse and a marvel, leaving no trace, no error, just a flawless execution of control that would make any criminal mastermind envious. Meanwhile, outside the oppressive walls of the asylum, a different kind of anxiety was brewing. Nick, Mariah, and Summer, friends and confidants who had grown close to Sharon and Phyllis over time, were gripped by a growing sense of dread. Their days had become a relentless cycle of unanswered phone calls and desperate searches, as each passing moment without news deepened the mystery. Nick paced the floor of his modest apartment, staring at the clock as if willing time to reveal some crucial detail. Mariah, whose mind raced with fears both rational and surreal, tried to piece together any clue that might lead to the missing women. Summer, usually the voice of calm, found herself unable to shake the image of Sharon and Phyllis, trapped in a nightmarish reality that was all too real. Adding to the perplexing uncertainty was Chance. Quiet and observant, Chance hesitated to speak out, tormented by an unnerving thought that perhaps they were not simply victims of a straightforward abduction. Without concrete evidence, he wrestled with the possibility that something even more disturbing was at play, that perhaps Sharon and Phyllis had become entangled in a dark web of their own making. Were they truly being kidnapped, or had they inadvertently orchestrated their own captivity? The absence of physical proof, coupled with the kidnapper's flawless operational security, left Chance trapped in a state of paralyzing indecision. Every theory he concocted only deepened the mystery, making it increasingly difficult to discern fact from a carefully constructed illusion. The enigmatic captor's motives remained an enigma, as unsettling as the asylum's haunted history. He chose to remain unseen, his identity hidden behind layers of technology and psychological manipulation. His silence about his personal background, his identity, and his long-term goals created a chasm of uncertainty that permeated every room and corridor of the derelict hospital. Some speculated that he was a former employee or patient, driven by a personal vendetta or a warped sense of justice. Others believed he to be an outsider, an intelligent and calculated predator who delighted in toying with the minds and hearts of his victims. But the truth was far more complex. His actions were driven by an inscrutable desire to dismantle the lives of those who dared to think they could outsmart him, all while leaving no evidence behind. As Phyllis and Sharon pressed on with their escape plan, they began to notice unsettling patterns in the asylum's design, a hidden logic to the madness that surrounded them. Every door, every flickering light, seemed to be a deliberate part of a vast, intricate puzzle. Yet, with every step they took, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Their whispered debates about the best way to navigate the maze, their careful decisions on which route to take, were all laid bare for the unseen observer. The kidnapper's delight was palpable. He thrived on the tension, the knowledge that even in their most private moments of collaboration, he remained an omnipresent force in their lives. The notion of complete control by an unseen hand was a terror unto itself. Phyllis's eyes darted nervously around every corner as she tried to identify any sign of their tormentor. Sharon, her determination bolstered by a mix of fear and defiance, vowed to overcome the overwhelming odds. "We must outsmart him," she murmured, her voice resolute despite the quaver of fear. "We have to assume he's always listening and then use that to our advantage." In their desperation, the two women began to devise a plan that took into account the possibility of surveillance, a plan that involved misdirection, coded language, and seemingly inconsequential chatter meant to confuse their malevolent audience. Yet, even as they implemented these countermeasures, the sinister reality was inescapable. The kidnapper's intelligence was as boundless as it was terrifying. He was always several steps ahead, ready to twist any attempt at subterfuge into another piece of his elaborate puzzle. His calculated machinations ensured that every strategy they employed was anticipated, every potential loophole was sealed before it could be exploited. This wasn't just a test of wit, it was a brutal contest of willpower, where survival hinged on the ability to remain unpredictable in the face of an enemy who thrived on predictability. Outside, the clock continued its relentless ticking. Nick, Mariah, and Summer, each grappling with their own brand of worry, knew that every minute spent in uncertainty brought their friends closer to an unimaginable fate. Their fear was compounded by the chilling absence of any definitive evidence. How could they convince authorities, or even themselves, of the horrifying reality when the trail was so meticulously erased? The abductor's brilliance lay not only in his cruelty but in his ability to obliterate any trace of his existence, a ghost who haunted every corridor without leaving a mark. Chance, in particular, found himself at a crossroads of thought. Was it possible that the situation was so convoluted that even the simplest explanation, kidnapping, failed to capture its true complexity? The thought that the two women might have inadvertently locked themselves in a trap of their own making, or that some hidden motive had spurred their capture, gnawed at him relentlessly. Without tangible proof, his voice of caution remained silent, a haunting reminder that sometimes, in the most twisted scenarios, certainty was an illusion. As the hours bled into each other in the cold, silent halls of the asylum, one thing remained starkly clear: their captor was not a mindless brute, but a calculating, intelligent force. He had orchestrated this elaborate game not out of necessity, but for the sheer satisfaction of control. In his eyes, every moment of fear, every whispered strategy, was a testament to his superiority. And as he continued to monitor every move with an almost perverse delight, the true horror of the situation became increasingly apparent. This was no ordinary kidnapping, it was a psychological chess match played out in the most desolate of settings, where the stakes were nothing less than life itself. In the end, the mystery of the captor's identity, his motivations, and the true extent of his planning would remain unsolved, at least for now. His brilliance lay in his ability to remain an enigma, to turn even the most cautious plans into mere fodder for his twisted amusement.